Hey, good evening, and welcome to Paranormal Lens, sponsored by Jotnex Paranormal. That's Jamie Widener, and I'm
Hello.
Chad Thomas, and we are here to talk to you about the paranormal and all that fun stuff. So, how's your week, Jamie? How's it going?
It's been great. It's been fast. It is Tech Week for the kids' theater program. So, as you know as well.
Hmm.
Um, so it's late nights and early mornings, which are, just so much fun with teenagers. Um, you know,
Your definition of fun and my definition of
yeah,
fun.
it's sarcasm. So
Okay.
I'm fueled by sarcasm these last couple of days. So,
Okay.
but I want to tell you something, Chad. I got to tell you a quick story.
Okay.
Earlier today, I went to a funeral.
Okay.
Um, and a dear cousin of mine passed away, and it
Um,
reminded me of something
mhm.
that I want to ask you and our audience if it's something that sounds familiar. So, a quick backstory: my family has had some tragedy. We've lost a lot of folks along the way, and on Sundays we have at Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, where we are, right. So
Mhm.
my family is actually buried in the same cemetery as the Booby family.
Oh,
Go
okay.
figure. I passed the Boobies today as I went around to where our plots are, and it reminded me that when we were kids, our parents and our aunts and uncles and all our cousins we would rally at the cemetery after church, sometime in the early afternoon, and have a picnic at the cemetery.
Hmm.
And spend time, communing with our, each other, but also there to pay respects to our family. And as very young children, and I'd say I was probably 4, 5, 6 years old, we got bored quick. So we would drift
Right.
off and run around and play, and into amongst the tombstones, and there was a reservoir nearby that had like a track around it. So we would go up there and run around and burn off all the energy that the calories that we inhaled. So,
Hmm.
but I'm wondering, has anybody else ever done something like this? Because we were chatting about it because we haven't been doing like all together there at the same time for quite a while, and our there were very young ones who were about the age that we would have been
Hmm.
who were doing exactly the same thing we did.
Uh-huh.
And, we were kind of, my cousins and I were chatting about it and laughing about it. But
Hmm.
then I thought, how strange is this to other people?
Well,
I wonder.
I didn't have the same experience, but I didn't grow up near family, so it's like not like like my father's family was probably 15, 20 miles away, and my mother's family was an hour and a half away or 2 hours away. So we didn't grow up around those, but I remember going to church and some of the churches having a graveyard
Sure.
or cemetery and like going to a picnic and running around, doing the same sort of thing. But yeah, we didn't gather and do that. But I think that is an interesting part of culture. And when we talked about the cemetery in Philadelphia,
Mhm.
we talked about how that was a big part of culture for a while.
Yes.
So yeah.
That came to mind as well.
Hmm.
And, this is nowhere near the size of that. It's a hilltop. It's got a fantastic view. It's always kind of pleasant there. It's appeasing. Like it's not like just crammed in some place with high walls around. And nothing wrong with that either if it is
No.
the necessity.
Hmm.
But it's just one of those places where it would be nice to spend time.
Hmm.
And we did. We sure
Right.
did.
And that's some of the reasons they were built in those places. So
Sure. Makes sense.
so you could rest in eternity there, but when your family came to visit, they were looking over a nice, peaceful, place that they'd want to be as well. So,
Of course.
um, so Todd and Carmela are with us tonight, and they say that they're sorry for your loss, Jamie, and as well as Jim. So,
I love Jim's comment. Sorry for your loss. Yes, but we used to get yelled at to not run over the graves. Yes, sir, I did too. I remember that now that you said it. But it was okay to be at least not in eyesight to climb on the tombstones, the vertical ones, but the flat ones we weren't allowed to be on those at all.
right,
Um,
right.
and for some reason that's a different kind of respect, I guess. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, running around the tombstones too as well. That was just we were okay with that, but we
Yeah,
couldn't run across the flat ones.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm not alone. Thank you.
No, no.
Um, and I told this story at work to a couple coworkers, and they said, "Well, is that why you're into the paranormal?" Yeah, that's it.
No, I don't. I think it's a little. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You got me.
So,
Anyway,
um,
I'm sorry. I sorry to take the time.
no,
That
no,
was
no,
really.
no. Jim said my
Uh,
mother used to turn off the radio, so I don't know.
was that when it was time to go? The radio went down because I can understand that. That was your cue because you could hear you could hear music across the place. We had the same idea. We had like a car playing instead.
Mm.
someone's car radio playing instead, because we're all kind of close to that on the driveway. And when that, or a horn honked, because we could be
Yeah.
across the whole property. It's a pretty big place. We hear
Mm.
the car horn honking. We knew it was time to hustle back.
Yep. So Bert says good evening and prayers, and
Thank you.
Kathy says hi, guys. So
Hey, Kathy.
good friend Kathy.
Good evening.
So and Heather's looking for a tale from Ireland, and
Yep, it's coming.
I see. Jim said the dead didn't like the loud music in the car, so as they were going in, they turned it off. So that makes
Right.
sense.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's one of those times, if it's too loud, you're too dead. No, that's not the phrase, is it? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, no. So should we move on, Jamie?
We probably should hop
All
to
right.
something else.
Okay. So, Jamie, I'm going to give you one last chance to say this because I know you've enjoyed it.
I have. I
What,
have.
what, what are we? What are we doing tonight, Jamie?
We are going to jump into Leap Castle.
We are. But Jamie, you're using the American pronunciation of the word for leap, but locally it is known as Lep Castle in Ireland. So I'm going to go with leap because I'm just going to confuse myself if I try to change, and I'll go back and forth. So, and
Well,
the other thing,
okay, we have in many episodes we have blatantly Americanized things, so
that's true.
we're going to American it up in here, as I believe I've said before.
So, um,
Understood.
the other thing I really didn't think about this is being this close to St. Patrick's Day, and I scheduled an episode on an Irish castle. So sometimes luck just plays into it. So here we go.
Did you say the luck of the Irish played into it?
Maybe. So, all right. So tonight we're going to start our episode on a road trip. Okay, we're in the county of Offaly, Ireland. We're in the foothold hills of the Slieve Bloom Mountains. We're traveling north on R421 from Rascrea to Kinnedy. So we're traveling through lush, rolling green farmland. We see fields full of different types of cattle. I'm sure that Heather was seeing the long-haired Highland cattle that she likes.
Mhm.
As we drive, we see the occasional machinery business or sawmill, but there isn't too much to see on this lonely Irish road. When we're about halfway to Kinnedy, we come across an intersection on our left. We look across the road because we're driving on the other side of the road now.
Right.
We see an old stone structure sitting by the road. A few hundred yards behind that, we see an even older structure standing beyond a stone fence. Being the intrepid adventurers that we are, and maybe having spent way too much time with our good friend David, we decide to explore. We make our way through the wrought iron gate, down the hill to the weathered structure. The 3-story tower house, which, sorry, I forgot to do something here.
Oh
the
yeah,
3-story,
slides.
the
Yeah.
3-story tower house, which is most likely the original part of the castle, still stands in grandeur, even though it has been adapted over the years. The original 2 ordered doors that would have been there, and they've been protected by an upper machicolation, have been replaced. Now that is, I did some investigating on that. That is openings above above the door in the base of the structure where there was a walkway where they could fire arrows and things down through. So anyway, so we gain access to the inside of the castle, and as we stand in the middle of the tower, we look around. We see mural passages, spiral staircases, fireplaces, and we imagine what it must have been like to live in this centuries-old Irish castle. The air is heavy and thick with history, or is it something else we sense? Is there something lurking in the shadows? There very well could be. This is Leap Castle, and it has the reputation of being one of the most haunted castles in the world. This has been the site of family feuds, betrayals, executions, and ghostly encounters for almost 600 years. Though we don't have an exact date as to when the castle was built, the structure that we know today is believed to have been built in the early 1500s. It is also surmised that this structure was built on an earlier castle, and before that, some believes that the Druids used the site for initiation ceremonies. As you can imagine, this site has seen much bloodshed, violence, and tragedy over the years. Our story begins somewhere in the late 13th or early 14th century. At this time in Irish history, the O'Carroll clan was the ruling clan of this area. Under them, as the secondary chieftain, was the O'Bannon clan. Legend tells us the O'Bannon clan had picked the site to build their stronghold, but there were two brothers who were vying for control and chieftainship of the clan. The only way to settle the dispute was to have a display of strength and bravery. How do Irish do that? In this case, it was not about out drinking one another, though that may have played into this. It was decided that they would both jump off the rocky outcrop where the castle was slated to be built. The survivor would have the honor of being chieftain. Now, we don't have any details on who won, but legend has it that after the first brother leapt from the outcropping, the second one waited, watched his brother fall to his death, and then walked away the victor. The castle was built and became known as Leim y Banné, meaning Leap of the O'Bannons, and it was eventually taken over by the O'Carroll clan, who truly ruled the area.
That sounds like a challenge to figure who's the bigger idiot, right?
Yeah,
One that
exactly.
goes first is the bigger idiot.
Right.
Right.
So, so the O'Carrolls ruled Leap Castle until about 1649. At this time, an English soldier named John Darby II from the Cromwellian forces took control of Leap Castle. From what I can piece together, Darby may have lived and defended the castle from 1642 to 1649 and was given the castle in lieu of payment for his services. Now, it seems like there was a lot of things that were done in lieu of payment for the services here. This was the beginning of a long line of the Darbys who controlled the castle. If you visit the Leap Castle website, you can see the entire list from 1649 through 1889. Jonathan Darby was the last Darby to inherit the castle from his grandfather in 1889. He and his wife Mildred Dill lived there until 1922. It is believed that Jonathan and Mildred would hold seances in the castle. This was the first recorded activity about paranormal activity in the castle. Doesn't mean it was the first activity there, it was the first that was recorded. The last Darby family to live there did extensive remodeling, and to fund this, much of the land that was part of the castle was sold. During the Irish Civil War in 1922, it is believed that the castle was looted and burned to its stone shell. It lay dormant and uninhabited until it was purchased in 1974 by Peter Bartlett. Others believe that Darby may have burnt the castle to file a reinstatement claim. Nevertheless, Bartlett purchased what was left of the estate in 1974. His mother had been a descendant of the O'Bannons, so Bartlett was interested in the property. Bartlett and his builder, Joe Sullivan, carried out extensive renovations and restorations until his death in 1989. In 1991, the current owner, Sean Ryan, and his wife, Anne, purchased the castle. They continue to do restoration work and experience paranormal activity to this day. So, that's a quick rundown on 525 years of history, Jamie. So, what are your thoughts so far before we dig into the paranormal side of it?
Well, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of trauma, a lot of love, I'm sure, as well for the place. So I could certainly understand how there could be activity. I'm assuming you're going to tell us about some activity, though, right?
Yeah. You want to hear about that?
Maybe. I mean,
All right.
I'm kind of curious. Anybody
Okay.
else? Yeah.
There's still a couple little things that we gotta cover. So let's start with the discovery that was made during a renovation project in the early 1900s. A hidden dungeon was discovered near the Bloody Chapel. This dungeon became known as the Oubliette, or Pit of Death. There was a chute beside the chapel that led to a pit that was lined with spikes. Inside, they discovered hundreds of human skeletons that had been impaled on wooden spikes. It is said that there were so many that it took 300 cartloads to remove all the bones.
Is that the catering company?
Maybe.
Maybe.
It is believed that the O'Carrolls would trap enemies and leave them to die slowly. The name oubliette comes from the French word oublier, meaning to forget. So you threw them down the pit, and this was a deep pit. It was like probably 15 or 20 feet deep. You threw them down there on the spikes. It's said that they pulled out over 150 skeletons. So pretty, like I said, they were pretty ruthless. So earlier I mentioned the story of the Bloody Chapel. Going a little more in depth on that story, we learned that after Mulrooney O'Carroll, there's a great Irish name, died in 1532, he was a strong leader with no plan for succession. This allowed a fierce rivalry to develop within the family. Brother turned against brother in a struggle for control. As I alluded to earlier, one of the brothers, Thaddeus, was a priest and was holding mass for a group of the family in the chapel. His brother, Tig, burst in late and rushed to the altar, at which point he plunged his sword into him and fatally wounded him. Thaddeus fell across the altar and died in front of his family. Now, do you think these two things may have left some unresolved energy at the castle? Some people do. In the Bloody Chapel, there have been reports of strange lights flickering, not only now, but when the castle was completely abandoned over all those years. But that's not the only thing. Disembodied chanting is heard, and shadow figures have been seen. Some believe that the priest also still haunts the chapel. So, what about all those prisoners? It is believed that they still haunt the castle too. Visitors and guests have reported hearing cries, whispers, and moaning sounds from the dungeon area. There have also been reports of hearing heavy footsteps, being pushed and touched. Every location has to have a female spirit, and Leap Castle doesn't disappoint. A woman in a flowing red dress has been reported to be seen in the hallways or looking out the windows. She is often carrying a dagger. It is believed that the Red Lady, as she has become known, was imprisoned and assaulted by the O'Carrolls. While in captivity, she gave birth to a child who was killed by the O'Carrolls. This led the woman to take her own life. Now, if you go to the Leap Castle website, it lists several of the hauntings. I'm going to go through a couple more of those. One of those hauntings is believed to be two young girls. Emily is 11 or 12, and Charlotte seems to be 6 or 7. It is believed that they lived at the castle around the 1600s, so either at the end of the O'Connells' reign or at the beginning of the Darby's time. The girls are often seen in the main hall or running up the stairwell. Some believe that Emily died after falling from the castle's southeastern battlements. People outside the castle have reported seeing a girl falling off the castle roof and disappearing before hitting the ground. The sound of a child's scream suddenly cutting out has been heard numerous times by the Ryans, the current owners. Charlotte has been seen with a deformed right leg that is almost totally turned backwards and drags backwards behind her while she's running after the older girls. Another haunt that seems to interact with guests more than the current owners is referred to as the governess. Typically, she is seen in the main hall with the two younger girls. Guests have reported being touched or having someone brush past them. A neighbor of Sean Ryan's was having lunch at Leap Castle one day, and both him and his female guests were sitting near the fire. They saw a proud lady in a Victorian attire walk diagonally across the main hall. After discussing what they both saw, the previously skeptical neighbor has changed his thoughts. An old man has been seen numerous times sitting peacefully by the fire in the main hall. Mildred Darby wrote this description of what she encountered. Now, this is the woman who did seances and probably was one of the first people to be able to see what was going on there. There is a little old man with a green cutaway coat, knee breeches, and bright shoe buckles, holding a leather bag in his hand. Sometimes seen with a little old woman with skinny hands, long black mitts, old-fashioned dress, and a big headdress. Both are sometimes seen with an old man dressed like a priest. With an intensively cunning face, the green old man tries to stop people. So, I talked earlier about Mildred Darby having seances in the castle. It is believed that Mildred encountered one of the scariest and most feared spirits in the castle. It's known as the Elemental. It is described as a dark, shadowy figure about 4 feet tall with glowing red eyes. When it was sighted, the putrid smell of sulfur and rotting flesh often accompanies it. When Mildred first encountered it, she described it as a small, deformed creature with a decaying face staring at her from the darkness. Where do they think this originated? Some people believe it was from druids that may have conjured the spirit. Some believe the druids or earlier cultures used the location as far back as 500 BCE. Others believe that the discovery of the batteries in the oubliette, along with Mildred Darby's dabbling in the occult, may have released the spirit. Others think it may have been an O'Connell who died of leprosy. We may never know, but the good news is that the current owners have never felt that presence. In the mid-20th century, it is rumored that a group of people from the O'Connell family stayed at the castle. O'Connell family stayed at the castle. This group of men reported seeing a tall, shadowy figure standing at the foot of their bed. They also heard whispers and breathing in the darkness. They had doors slammed shut on their own, and one man reported being pushed down by an invisible force. Could this have been members of a rival clan keeping up the battle? So what does Sean Ryan, the current owner, think? He has been there since 1991, working on restoring it. He's experienced many of the things I reported earlier. The list of things he has documented includes chanting from the bloody chapel, even when the castle is completely empty. He feels cold spots, hears whispers, and sees shadow figures moving in the halls. With all of this activity, he isn't scared. He claims that the spirits aren't malevolent, but are protective of the castle. So there are many more stories on the website for the castle, so feel free to explore them yourself. I know if I ever find myself in this part of Ireland, I'll be checking the castle out. Now, you may be wondering if the castle has been investigated by any reputable investigators. Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, and Paranormal Lockdown, Most Haunted, a British paranormal show, have all done episodes there. All right, so not all of them may be reputable, but there has been evidence that was documented. Zach Baggins and his crew recorded a shadow figure moving on camera. One of the crew reported feeling intense pressure on his chest like he was being pushed down. I'm sure we can guess who that probably was. The team from Most Haunted heard disembodied voices and footsteps. One investigator felt an invisible hand grab her arm in the dungeon. I found a video online of investigators Sam and Colby, along with guest Katrina and Stasia, on a YouTube video where they documented an investigation that they did in the castle. They started out by using an Ovilus device as well as flashlights and were getting relevant answers to questions, both through the Ovilus and the flashlights. The discussion led them to believe that they were talking to Thaddeus, the priest. They then used an envoy device to communicate with Mildred Darby. They asked her about the elemental. If you want to believe what they discovered, Mildred told them that the elemental was an old spirit from Druid times. It was not her that created it. She said that the elemental was still there, but they were not in danger. The elemental was currently dormant. When she did her seances, she woke up the elemental. Since there hadn't been any investigations happening in a long time, the elemental had lost its energy. So I found that sort of interesting.
Yeah.
While they were asking questions, one of their video lights turned off. After looking into it, they determined that the light should have lasted for 6 more hours, but the battery had completely drained. Had Mildred used the power from their light to communicate with them? They then moved on to an automatic writing session. As they were doing this, the two girls began to see light anomalies and shadow movements. They were hearing taps and they continued to have equipment issues. They had at least 2 camera batteries die, which caused them to lose footage. When they started, the batteries had plenty of power. When they tried the automatic writing session again, a cross or a dagger, depending how you looked at it, was drawn on the paper. Was it spirit writing? I can't say one way or another. They show the planchette moving with them touching it, but not focusing or even looking at it. That's one of those that just you can't tell. I don't buy it, but I don't not buy it.
Yeah, I get it.
From there, they moved to the Bloody Chapel. When they put a REM pod by the oubliette, it started going off. They reset it, and it started to go off again. They had some other interesting events. There are several videos of investigations at Leap Castle, so I recommend checking out them and doing some investigation online yourself.
Okay.
So, according to their website, Leap Castle is open for visitors and tours Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. All you have to do is contact the current owner, Sean Ryan. His email and phone number are available on the website. I'm going to close with a summary written on Celtic Elegance website. Leap Castle's blend of blood-soaked history and intense paranormal activity makes it one of the most intriguing and terrifying haunted locations in Ireland. For those brave enough to explore its dark past, the castle offers an unforgettable experience filled with spine-tingling ghost stories and unnerving supernatural encounters. Whether you're a believer in the paranormal or a skeptic intrigued by history, Leap Castle is a destination that captures the imagination and invokes a haunting sense of mystery. Just be sure to keep an eye on the shadows. You never know who or what might be watching. Jamie, I'll let you think about that for a minute while I quote some sources. Leapcastle.net is the website for the castle. CelticElegance.com, Google Maps, LittleHouseOfHorrors.com, and YouTube.com, Sam and Colby, Demonic Encounter at Ireland's Most Haunted Castle. Always got to be a demon in there somewhere, huh?
Yep.
So
I'm surprised if Ghost Adventures were there, they didn't find one as well. So,
well, I'm sure they did. I didn't. I try not to watch too much of that.
hey.
So, Jamie, what do you think?
Well, a couple things. One is, castles aren't built to be like summer cottages.
Mm-hmm.
They're fortifications. They're meant to protect something or a place. There's a reason, and
Right.
it's usually a position of power. And a lot of times there's conflict, therefore. So, and you described a lot of it through the years, through
Mm-hmm.
the centuries. Which can lead to a lot of activity, and it doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know of any castle anywhere, especially European castles with age, that don't have some kind of a story about them, along the paranormal lens.
Right. Right.
Plug ourselves right there. Uh, so I'm not surprised to hear any of this, and it's fascinating to me how barbaric people were in
Uh-huh.
their era, and just the pit, concept, the dungeon with just dropping people down 15, 20 feet on the spikes. I mean, that I'm sure this isn't the only place that had that, and
Right.
the torture devices that came through the era as well, just the stuff that people did to others. It's amazing. And that energy has to go somewhere, as that
Right.
person was passing on. So I'd like to think they go home to some beautiful place that is fond to them, but unfortunately, sometimes they get trapped, and here they stay, and this is that place. I'm sure a lot of love was there too, from the
Mm-hmm.
families through the years and all the transitions. And um, I find it interesting that you mentioned the lady in red, and then I forget the name of the other lady. I want to share this with you here, and I think it's a good place to step into it. I came across an article a week or so ago that I set aside for a while just to get to it when I had time.
Okay.
But it's from Atlas Obscura, and it is basically saying, why are so many ghosts women?
Okay.
And here's just I'll drop the article in the comments so you guys can see it.
Mhm.
But the tag of it is: do women's souls have more sticking power? Are women more motivated to return to their mortal coil after their mortal coil has been shuffled? Are female ghosts more memorable to us? Or perhaps we're more likely to think of a woman in white dress when we see an errant patch of fog or ectoplasm, as it may be. So, we think about this, that we see that every castle has a woman in white, in this
Mhm.
case, a woman in red.
Mhm.
All of these old places have that.
Right.
Um, in this case, has two resident female ghosts, maybe more.
Right.
Um, but it does strike me. We don't see men in white. We
Right.
assume it's a woman automatically. We just put it there.
Right.
It's fascinating to me.
That is interesting.
So let me click this and drag it into the comments
Okay.
for you.
Sure.
Let's see.
Bert said we need to get the Jotnick's crew to Ireland, and
Of
and
course.
Todd and Carmela said any castle in Europe is on the bucket list to visit and investigate. You know what that means? Road trip.
Absolutely. Let's
And
go.
Bert says because they're not done nagging yet.
Oh, Bert. There,
Yeah.
there is the
Yep.
article.
There's the
The
article.
link to it.
Thanks for doing that, Jamie.
It's very
I find
interesting,
it
actually.
interesting. And I find it we see we see the children too,
Mhm.
a lot of times in that there's at least two strong child spirits here, um, and we don't think about that when you think about a castle. You think about the battles and those sorts of things that happen there, but not just there was family life in these places as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe looking at it from a different direction, but kids in this era weren't kids of our era. You
No,
know,
not at all.
they and I'm fortunate enough. I live really close to two Amish farms. And then
Mhm,
every day I pass through, down the road by them, and the kids are out there every afternoon. Especially in season now. We're not there yet. We're not planning quite yet, but they're out there working the fields. They're out there working the farm, the barns. Dealing with the livestock, all the stuff they have. They are from a very early age incorporated into the industry that they are. And,
mhm,
and I can only imagine, and I'll use my grandparents as a good example. My grandmother is one of 13 kids,
mhm.
and they were farmers from Southern Virginia. So, many hands make light work.
Right,
So, everybody was expected to step in as soon as they were able to lift something or do something. They were in the tasks of what it took to get things done. So here, that same thing, that kid is, that youth at least, is ingrained in that castle. The energy is there. They were active. That was, and if there was a battle, they were called upon to do something to help support the defense of it,
right.
whether it was running weaponry around or ammunition around or whatever.
Or being nurses and doing
Right.
that part of it, and yeah.
Taking nourishment, whatever it may be. They were, they may not have been carrying a sword,
Mhm.
they might not have lift one, but they were certainly engaged in the activity.
But the other thing is if they could, they wanted to.
Well, sure.
That
That's the other.
that
That's
that was
right.
the
Absolutely.
expectation, like, you defended the family, you defended the
Awesome.
castle, so
Totally understand.
do you think there is paranormal activity there?
I do. I definitely do. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
How about you?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any doubt about it that there's stuff there. I found it interesting. Not that I believe the Sam and Colby thing. Like they're ghost hunters. They're not. I don't know that they're paranormal investigators, but they're ghost hunters. But I found it interesting watching their episode. Um, they interviewed one of the women who's there, who is a medium and sees things and stuff, and she recognized one of their friends or their guests as an intuitive, and just the discussion that they think that they had with Mildred and the elemental energy. I find it really interesting that the elemental feeds off people's energy. And one of the things that Mildred's husband Jonathan said was he didn't believe in it. So not believing in it, they think once Mildred was gone, him not believing in it took away its power and its energy and caused it to go dormant. But then it just takes people being there and feeding into that energy to bring it back.
Okay.
So, um, which
Well,
it,
how long is the and just with the research you've seen, how long has the castle been open to the public? I missed that if you said it. I'm sorry.
I don't know that we have a definite time frame, but it was 1991 is when
Transition to new owners, right?
transition to new owners. A lot of renovation had already been done. It was a ruin when it was taken over by Bartlett in '74. So it was a complete ruin at that point.
Okay.
Um, so the fact that it is open now, and I'll just have to dig into that a little bit more. But I don't know how many paranormal investigations they have there.
Sure. Well, we know 3 or 4 like key ones, obviously
Right.
5 probably, you mentioned in
Hmm.
the scale of things. And then, I say bigger ones because they were television crews and production value and all that stuff. But,
Right.
you know, um, it, this kind of reminds me of the opportunity we have at Booby's Brewery. You
Hmm.
know, Sam Allen, the current owner, took over the place in '87 or something like that.
Hmm.
It was a bit run down. It was a lot run down. It was because idle for 40 years or so,
Right.
between the family coming out of it and then him coming in. Been working to restore it ever since, kind of thing. Obviously, it's well restored already. Those who've been there know that, but there's
Right.
always in these such old buildings, there's always work to be done, and there is no way that the property in Mountjoy is anywhere near as old as Leap Castle is, or
Right.
any castle in Europe, anything in Europe for that matter. This this 250-year-old building here or whatever it is the addition in the back of some places
Right.
in
Well, this
Europe. So
this there's 525 years of documented history here.
right, so it's
So
we say that, and I say that to say that it's nowhere near that, but the idea is the same. The parallel is that a place that was left go.
hmm.
Um, Idled for quite a while, and then someone took the time and had the care and the passion to bring it back to something that is now being enjoyed by many others, and has
Hmm.
been for quite a while now. In the '90s, early '90s to now, we're talking 35 years. It's quite a bit.
Right.
So it's fantastic that someone took this on. I'm so happy that they did. My
Hmm.
only remorse of it all is that I haven't gotten there,
Right.
and I hope that stays open until I can someday.
Well, Heather would put up a comment that said they drove by 2 times when they were over. They don't think it was open. It's on their list to see.
Okay.
Heather, what I would say is check out their website. It has Sean's phone number on it and his email address. Reach out before you go and see if you can set something up next
Yeah,
time.
tell them we sent you. Yeah.
So I know it says they were closed in February. They're and that's still up on their website, but it does sound like they are open quite often. So
Yeah, I would imagine this is very much like White Hill, with the winter months being without heat, an idle time perhaps where you, or at least you go at your risk,
right.
because of the risk of exposure. But, summer months, I'm sure there's quite a lot going on there. It
Hmm.
would make sense,
So yeah,
or at least I would hope.
yeah. Talking about energy feeding into things and stuff like that, Jamie. I'm going to do a little teaser on, that I'm going to do an episode on my father's house, the house that I grew up
Yes.
in.
Yep.
Um, while we were growing up, there was definitely activity there. But as the kids left, like as my brothers and sisters and I moved out, the activity seemed to wane. And it's not because my parents didn't believe in it, but I think that youthful energy was gone.
Sure.
And my dad doesn't really want to see activity there at this point because he's there by himself. Um,
Sure.
but I think that may and we may be into some of the same thing that if you're not feeding into that energy, or that energy isn't there to feed off of, things start to die down. So
Sure.
it's just interesting to me. So
Well, and it's not unlike when we go to a new location that's not been investigated. The idea that we have, you know, eh, we have to start fresh with the spirits that are there to teach them how to communicate and engage with the equipment and the opportunities that we bring. Obviously, learn about who we are too. It's just
hmm.
that there's a value here of trust.
Right.
That if you were just to walk into my house, I've said this so many times. People ask a lot of great questions during investigations. Like, well, how do the ghosts know to engage with you? Well, they don't. First of all, right away,
Right.
at least. And I would be. This is the analogy. I would be. The same way, if you come into my house and walk up to me and start asking me a whole bunch of questions and expect me to do like some dog and pony tricks, of like
Right.
knock on something, make this happen, I'd be
Right.
like, get out of my house, fool.
Right.
I'm
Exactly.
not doing this. Get out, and but the opportunity of reoccurrence really allows for the knowledge of who we are, the care and compassion that we have, at least I feel we have as investigators,
Hmm.
to really get to know what's going on here, and hopefully that warmth brings in opportunities for engagement. And
Hmm.
we found success in this, and with what we do where we are,
Right.
but we've also had the opportunity to go back to several other places, and I think that helped us there too. So yeah, and I'm open to others' thoughts on this too, but
Hmm.
that's my take at least.
Right.
But running in and asking for all kinds of stuff to happen isn't necessarily the right approach.
Right. Todd and Carmela asked, "Do you think the one elemental entity is more predominant in a location than another?" It doesn't. I think the castle's big enough that, and they weren't specific enough about it. I think it's probably in specific areas, but they didn't name what those areas are. There are definitely things that happen near the pit. There are things that happen near the chapel, but I think the elemental is more all over the building or the structure. And my thought there too is it may not be confined to the structure. I didn't do much research on what happens on the grounds or anything like that. A lot of the grounds were sold off of over the years. But if it was truly a druid um, worship place, there's a good chance that it would not be confined to that castle, because that didn't exist at the time.
Right. It
So
wasn't there yet
right.
at 500 BCE.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean it's
It's a
hard.
good question, though. It really is.
Mhm.
And I took the question to mean, like, and kind of like in the sense of spirits as well. We're often dealing with more than one thing at a
Mhm.
place. And how does one get in front of another? Like to be heard sometimes.
Right.
Like I keep talking, right? A lot. So, how do you get a word in?
Right.
You wait for my pause, perhaps, but sometimes you just got to say, dude, and step in, right?
Right.
So, when there are more than one, you're engaging with more than one spirit. How does one get ahead of the other? Like
Well,
that's always a curiosity of mine as well.
let me expand on that a little bit. Are they interacting with each other, or are they in different planes? And like, and that's my question. Like, are they really in the same time plane? Same, like, or are you talking to two different spirits who have no idea that they are what they may be communicating with you, but they have no idea that the other one is there.
True, that's fair.
So
And maybe they have a spokesmodel who talks for them.
maybe, um,
Spirit spokesmodel.
maybe oh, Jamie. Um,
Ooh.
but no, and having some of the investigations we've been at,
Yeah.
sometimes the way that things come
Yep.
to us, like they don't connect, but it's like you're having multiple conversations that aren't connected to each other. Maybe it's because they don't know they're there.
Oh, we've captured conversations that were happening without us involved at all.
Right.
And certainly, and I go back to the Haldeman Mansion there on the upstairs in the second floor in the back near the servants' quarters. There was a couple times when I captured two women talking, not in a lot of audibleness, but there were definitely two voices, and
Hmm.
they were clearly talking to each other because there's no one there. Like we just left a recorder sit, walked away, came back an hour later, and here's what we got.
Right.
So and I know we've caught that elsewhere as well. So you're maybe right, and maybe they don't know that we're there sometimes,
Hmm.
which is fascinating.
Right. I mean, this whole multi-dimensional possibility is intriguing.
Mhm.
Like we could all be having our own lives, our own timeline in the same places, and how does that work?
The way it's working right now,
Exactly. We'll never. Well, I don't want to say we'll never understand it. We won't understand it in our existence. So,
most likely, yes, that's fair.
so well, we're really getting deep into the
Whew,
paranormal rabbit hole
we
this
really leaped right into this one.
morning. Oh my.
I should be done with that. Whew, it's so much fun though. But
So.
this is really interesting, and I think when you stop to really look at something like this, you could have this kind of conversation about almost every part of the paranormal,
Hmm.
and that's the cool thing. And this is what I say all along, like we have no bounds to what we do, where we go with things that we're going to talk about here, but everywhere, and I know we're not the only ones having these conversations, and that's the
Right.
best part of it, is that we're all talking like this and around this kind of
Mm,
way. We just got to find a way to funnel it.
right. And then there's what Todd said, or they are like, oh, they're here again. Do we need to communicate with them?
And by them, you mean Jamie. Okay, I get it. Fine, I'll stop talking.
So yeah, yeah, definitely a lot to think about. And that's what makes the paranormal so intriguing.
Yep.
I mean, you've got the history, you've got this depth of thought that's like, wow, you can really you can really dive into it. So or
Yeah.
leap into it, Jamie. There you go.
Hop right in.
So
All right. Well, do you have more? Is there
no,
more?
no, no. I think I mean,
Okay.
that's it. I just, again, just, what keeps things there?
Yeah.
We could go on for hours, with some of this, having it such an old place and,
Yeah,
just
that's the question I'd like to have answered anywhere we go,
right.
to the spirits that are present. Like, what keeps you here? What is this the thing? What's the
Hmm.
one thing that makes this your place? And I'm sure there's many, 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 many reasons, and unfortunately, we just can't capture that. But it is something that I'd like to know.
Right.
For
Yeah. And what
There
Todd
it is.
says here.
So it makes the paranormal investigation so interesting. You're
Hmm.
absolutely right.
So, well, we could go on and on, but let's talk about what's coming up.
Yeah. So next week we are going to, well, we're going to talk about Tommy knockers, and the more I dig into it, I've dug into it already. There is going to be some connection to Ireland and the UK, as well as here in the US, with what Tommy knockers are. And I won't give too much away, but
Hmm.
um, I'll tell you it's a deep subject.
All right.
All right. And then the week after, on the 25th, Chad's going to dive into the Dybbuk box.
Yep.
April 1st, I'm going to talk about paranormal hoaxes, because April Fool's Day, why not? And then we get into the fun stuff. So
Hmm.
April 8th, we're going to talk about the history, and Chad's going to tackle the history of the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in advance of our trip there on the 10th of April. So, we're talking about on Tuesday, we'll be there Thursday investigating. So basically, we're going to sign off that night and go pack our bags and get ready to get out of town. So,
Yep.
um, and coming back on the 15th, we're going to go over, hopefully have some of our co-investigators with us that evening to go over what we experienced, at least in the sense of personal experiences. I'm not sure we'll have time to really dig into evidence review, but you never know.
Right.
We're all intrepid people, so who are going, so we might have something to capture the show. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, and I Chad, I keep saying this every week as it gets closer and closer, but the excitement keeps building,
Hmm.
and it's a simmer now, it's a bubble. Next week it's going to be a boil. So
Uh-huh.
April 10th cannot come fast enough to get us out there. So
Exactly. So I'm
so
really looking forward to that. So
it's going to be great. Um, and then so talk. Whoops, I hit too many buttons again. So we have some upcoming investigations at Booby's Brewery, our home base in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. These are open to the public. We're back on March 22nd, so a week from Saturday. And then again, we're off to Tala on the 10th, and then back to the brewery on the 25th, 26th. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's like a one font. Holy cow. I have glasses on, dude. Wow. Um, and then May 17th, we're having a Unity event. We'll have a little bit more information next slide, but that's going to be with Land and Legend Paranormal as a sister team to us that night. Uh, and then coming around on to June 21st, for the first half of the year, we have more dates, of course, for the second half. We'll get them up as we get more space on here,
hmm
as we scroll along. But those ticketed events there's still slots available for all of them. Although I do believe the 22nd is starting to sell pretty quickly as we get closer. It always does. So if you're in the area and you're interested in coming out and joining us, do not wait too long, as it may be a sold out event by the time we get to that weekend.
hmm
But boobiesbrewery.com/entertainment is the spot to find tickets, and that will transition you over to their Saver Stub site, which will be the place to actually do the purchase of the ticket.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go a little further. I gotta find my mouse again too. Why did I move it? Like, seriously. I have two screens here and I lost it on the other one.
All right, I got you.
Yeah,
I
just
got
get. All right.
There you go.
Click, please. All right. So, talking about that Para Unity event on May 17th, we're going to have Stacy and Gary Smith from Land and Legend Paranormal join us. Great investigators, good people. Maybe great investigators, even greater people. I'll go
Mm.
that far. We're excited to work with them. Well known in the field, well respected. Just I'm not trying to get past Tala, but I am looking forward to May 17th as well.
Right.
So, but a fun night, and really curious to see how they approach coming to the brewery and investigating with us there. So come see us that night too.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. All right, and of course, if you don't want to do a public event, you can come and do a private one. We can have the whole place to yourself. The brewery has 3 floors. The bar level on the main floor, which is the original Eloise bar in the central hotel property building of the building. The dining rooms upstairs into what's now the ballroom, but it was the residence level for the Booby family, and down to the catacombs, and some spaces in between as well. So, if you're interested in scheduling a private investigation, just reach out to our team founder, Melissa Keller. And that is a new email address of Melissa at Jott, Nyx, NYX paranormal.com. And again, Melissa at JOTT dash or hyphen, as the fancy people say, NYX paranormal.com.
Mm-hmm. More to come on that too. But
And if you're coming, let us know. We'll pop in and help investigate with you if you're interested. All right. Next slide.
Next slide.
So you found us here tonight on either Facebook or YouTube here with this slightly odd live broadcast so far. Again, sorry for the beginning where we had some technical difficulties. But later on tomorrow, we're going to be on all the streaming services, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, a few others.
It may take a little bit longer because I'm going to have to do
Well,
some
we got to
editing.
fix. Yeah, we got to fix what happened, right? So, for those with us tonight, at least live, thanks for hanging on. This is the joys of live entertainment. Sometimes it works and sometimes it does not.
Yep. So,
but of course, there's lots of ways to reach out to us. If you're interested in sharing a topic that you'd like to hear us do, or give us any direct any direct context to anything we've talked about, you can shoot us an email at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. Chad and I both get that. And then, to find all of the links to all the stuff we have a link tree, which is linktr.ee, and there's a slash in there, Paranormal Lens as well. So that captures all of the stuff.
Yep.
At one time.
Jamie, last week we were talking about Stacy Smith, and she has her own podcast.
Yes.
Her podcast is the Rustic Spirit Podcast.
Yes, it is.
So, check it out. We like to, give credit to other podcasters out there. So definitely check out her podcast. And she's going to join us in a couple weeks. So,
yes, we have a special episode coming up.
Yeah. So we're in the next few weeks. We haven't put it out yet, but we are going to have some other guests coming on right after the Tala episodes. We have the Das House, Jamie. We're going to bring people in from the Das House and talk about that. So it'll be fun.
I'm excited for all of this. Anytime we get to engage with others in the field, and that's the joy of going out, right, and getting out away from home base, for us, and of course other investigators come and join us too. But anytime we get to engage with others, of like mind and spirit, pun intended, you learn something. You expand, and I think again, there's room for everyone, so it helps. If you can put another thing in your bag of tricks, to do, or a piece of equipment perhaps that you haven't used before, and you get to experience it with someone else. That's fantastic. It's always open for it.
Yep. So,
all right. Well, sir,
you have any other thoughts tonight, Jamie?
I don't. Other than I should probably share Heather's comment here. I read this twice to make sure it was clean. going back to what we were talking about earlier, though. If you watch the show Ghosts, which is a British adaptation of
Hmm.
a BBC comedy, but the American show Ghosts, I think it's on CBS. Comedy, half-hour episodes, fun to watch.
Great show. Great show.
Really, really funny. Those ghosts are waiting to be sucked off, meaning they go to the afterlife. So, and it's of course a play on words and fun there. So, yeah,
Hmm. So,
aren't we all just waiting for that? So. I do want to share one quick thing,
okay.
something that I'm going to have to give Chad Thomas a whole lot of credit for, and so forth. But we got some swag, guys. So we got stickers. So if you see us out and about somewhere, ask for one. So Paranormal Lens, sponsored by or presented by Jotnick's Paranormal, right on there. I've got one on my pack. I've got one on a water bottle. I've got one. I got one stuck to something. Somebody doesn't know where it is yet. Um, They'll find it sometime. But yeah, you see us out and about, we'll be having some on us. So feel free to say, "Hey, I need one of those stickers,"
Yep.
and we'll help you stick it
Yep.
somewhere.
And we have black ones and white ones.
Black
So
ones, white ones, and we have some new Jotnick's Paranormal ones as well.
mhm. Yep.
So
So
we'll see you around.
if you
We'll
come to
line 'em up.
investigation, ask us. We'll have them at our investigations. So,
Yep,
so
yep,
all
exactly.
right. Anything else, Jamie, or is
I'm
that
good. I'm
that
good,
you're
sir.
good?
Yeah,
No,
it's
all
it's
right.
a good episode. Thank you as always.
You're
Looking
welcome.
forward to seeing everybody next week when we talk about Tommy knockers. So
So,
we'll let
all
you
right.
go.
Well, we're gonna try to get out of here, and hopefully this works better than the beginning of our show work tonight. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you soon.
Good night, all.